You know.
Help me remember, can't we, I guess we can't submit that for credit. Right. Can't give 2 hours. Yeah, if you don't mind.
I'll,
Remind me to get the present, let me share the presentation.
okay. And I'll have to fill out the form and then you sign it.
Thanks. Because I'd like to get them their hours.
I think probably all of you need hours.
I'm sorry about all the trouble. No problem.
I can hear y'all. Yeah, y'all couldn't hear me. Everything I was saying, y'all. Well, how's your son doing?
We went to the hospital today and he did the
Because I have another one I can run down.
We're actually doing it. I'm not gonna be here long.
It'll be painful for a few more days. Maybe 3 or 4 days and he won't even know.
There's Ms. Jackson.
I'm here.
Let me know when you're so ready.
You can start.
That's just to show my badge.
Because I can watch.
Choose, log in a different way or something.
We need to give Mr. Fagan a badge.
Got it.
Mr.
Oops, sorry.
I was sworn in as special deputy.
I thought we took these out of the. I thought we took these out of the group that didn't ask for that.
Well,
That's what supposed to.
so Trey asked me all the numbers for them weeks ago.
So I thought. They didn't follow up.
Mr. Green, you ready?
Whenever you are, sir. Yes, sir.
Everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. This time I will call the April 11th, 2022 meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. Welcome. At this time, we will do our pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on our agenda tonight is to approve the minutes from the March 14th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? And if so, do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 14th meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving now under instructional, the first item there is the spring testing update. Mr. Dave Sherman.
All right, you have it in your packet there. Put it up on the screen. There we go. As you know, at the end of the year, we give our end of course and end of grade tests. A couple of years ago, we used to give North Carolina final exams. Those have gone away and we still do our CTE testing, but particularly what I'm talking about is our end of grade and end of course. These are the tests that are given at the very end of the year. 2 dates to kind of keep in mind. Our end of course tests, those are high school level course, have to be given in the last 5 days of the school year. And then our end of grade, depending on which version and which grade, all those have to be given within the last 10 days of the school year. So if you look at those next 4 sections right there, the early college will be May 16th to the 20th, the last 5 days of their school year. The June 6th through the 10th, the last 5 days for the high school. And then May 27th through June 10th will be the 10 days during which elementary and middle schools can give those tests. That doesn't mean they're going to use all 10 of those days. Most students just have a reading and a math test they need to take, unless they're in 5th grade, and they'll also take a science test. So for the most part, it'll be 2 or 3 days during that time. The only exception to that is our 8th graders that are taking Math 1 and they don't take the 8th grade test anymore. They used to take the 8th grade test and the Math 1 test. That was a change a couple of years ago. So they're only going to take the EOC for that Math 1 test. So 2 or 3 of those days, somewhere in that 10-day window is when those administrations will happen. There's a couple other things I want to point on here is we do have our Extend 1 version of the test. Those are for our students that are most seriously disabled students. And we do need to have an assessment when we assess all of the students across each grade level. We need to have an assessment that meets the needs for all of those students. So we do have, usually it's less than 1% or right at about 1% of our students that take that test. That happens sometime during that 10 days. And it usually doesn't happen just over one day for those students. It happens for a period of time. And whether that's 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, depending on how the student interacts with the assessment there. So that's the Extend 1s. Remediation and second administration is something we've done for many, many years here. And that's the ability for any of our students that don't meet the proficiency level on any of those tests. We give them an opportunity to remediate between the time they took their first test and the end of the school year. They get that opportunity just if that was a bad day for their testing, they get that remediation. And then by the rules from DPI, they can't take that second administration until after the school year is finished. So we finished on June 10th. Those tests will happen on a variety of days after June 10th, depending on whether they're part of our summer program, whether they're just taking that test, whether they're getting any extended remediation. It varies a lot depending on the students there. But that's a second opportunity for students to show that they have met the proficiency. No requirement to do it. No, stress put on doing that. It's just an opportunity that if the child/parent is interested in giving that student a second opportunity to show that they are proficient. That's that opportunity right there. Then the third one, the last one on your page here, is our grade 3 Read to Achieve assessment. You have questions about this one. This is the state law that says no student can go on to 4th grade until they have either shown their reading proficiency or been identified as a student that should not be held liable to that particular standard. So a student that is severely disabled would probably is one that we would ask for what's called a good cause exemption for those. A student that is brand new to the United States and does not speak English would be one that we don't hold back in 3rd grade just because they haven't had an opportunity to learn English. They still get those standards. They can move on to the next grade. They get our ELL services moving on from that point right there. So the students in 3rd grade must either show their reading proficiency or have a good cause exemption saying why they should not for the end of that school year. Those students will get numerous opportunities between the end of the school year and the beginning of the next school year during which they can show that reading proficiency, whether it's on the 3rd grade test they took at the end of the year, whether it's the reading assessments they've done all year long, whether it's the reading assessments they do during our summer program, the tests they take at the end of the summer program, or the assessments they do at the very beginning of the next school year. They'll have numerous opportunities to show that proficiency. And if they don't show that proficiency, then we mark them as retained in 3rd grade. That is our Read to Achieve section of that part right there. Questions about the testing that's coming up by the end of the year?
Do we anticipate that a lot of 3rd graders will not be proficient?
I don't believe that we're going to have a significant, our experience so far with the passing rate on the beginning of grade tests. So many of our grades, except for 3rd grade, we measure how you did at the end of 4th grade to how you did at the end of 5th grade and measure your teacher's effectiveness during that time. It's what a teacher effectiveness rating, and those measures happen from the end of 4th grade to the end of 5th grade. Because there's no end of 2nd grade test, we have to give those students a test at the beginning of 3rd grade. We call it the beginning of 3rd grade test. In essence, it's a version of the test they'll take at the end of the year. Our passing rate on that test was not significantly different than it was in previous years. It was a little lower, but we didn't go from, I'll make it up 50% to 10%. It stayed relatively close to where we were. So we believe the amount of time we were in school last year, the amount of remediation that has been happening throughout the school year, the money you put into having those teacher assistants available so that students are getting that extra remediation, that extra help during the school year would be things that should keep our passing rate relatively similar. Ms. Crump's been telling you about our reading assessment so far this year. Those numbers are down a little bit, but not significantly down. Ms. Crump?
Yes, our middle of the year assessments show that they are slightly lower than where they have been in the past. So, you know, maybe several students different, but I don't think it's going to be a massive amount of students.
But I'll have to add too, just from what Ms. Crump's told us from beginning of the year assessments to middle of the year assessments, been tremendous growth.
Yes.
And Polk County was actually recognized at the last superintendent's quarterly meeting for the progress that our students have made on that standard. So I'm like you, I don't think it'll be a tremendous number, any significant increase. There'll maybe a few more, but those teachers do a great job.
Other questions for Dave? All right, then we'll move on to our next item under instructional, which is the school calendars, and right back to Mr. Dave Sherman.
You have 4 of them there. So one of them you don't have to touch. Polk County Early College Calendar for 2022-2023 is just for your information. You approved that last year. Remember, we're on a 2-year cycle to approve calendars. So last year you approved the 21-22 and the 22-23 calendars. Unfortunately, the 22-23 for all the other Polk County schools, I made a mistake and I didn't catch it last year. So as we started reviewing the calendars for this year with the calendar committee, we realized that we made a mistake and we added 1 day, and that is in February 17th. I had 1 too many student days, and so we removed that and added a work day to that day right there. So kind of filled that month of February and moving across there. So that's one that will take your approval. No change to the beginning of the year, no change to the end of the year, but that will take your approval. Then the calendar committee met for 23-24. We brought the group of teachers together, the group of parents that got selected to be on that calendar committee. We brought them together and had 2 days worth of meetings. We kind of introduced them to the calendar for 23-24. We had them look at the 22-23 one also. We worked with them on what the calendar law says we must have in a calendar. They then realized that in this particular year, there is very, very little flexibility. So I'm going to use the Polk County all other schools as our example. This is the calendar that most of our schools will use. And in this particular year, the calendar law says that we cannot start any earlier than the Monday closest to August 26th. For this particular year, that makes it after August 26th or August 28th. This school year that we're in right now, we actually started the week before. That's August 21st. So we bumped back a week. We lost a week of time in there because the calendar law says we cannot start any earlier than the Monday closest to August 26th. September 4th is Labor Day. October 9th is our first choice for us as a school system. This is the work day we put at the end of the first 6 weeks grading period. Gives an opportunity for our elementary schools and other grades to have conversations with parents 6 weeks into the school year. Lots of our schools use this time to have parent-teacher conferences to get introduction to the school, to see how the school year is starting. And those opportunities to have that parent-teacher communication happening on a particular day right there. Also, this is a good opportunity to get report cards ready. Those will go out the 10th or the 11th that year. November 10th is the holiday for Veterans Day. We then have 3 days at November that are 3 holidays. Now came the highly controversial part, and that is Christmas. For the second year in a row, 21, 20, 22, 23, which is next year, and for 23, 24, we will not have 2 weeks at Christmas. We looked at this calendar in a whole variety of ways and looked at various opportunities to have 2 weeks right there. And this is what was decided as the best way to make it work. So the 18th, 19th are regular student days. The 20th is a half student day. We then have the 21st, 22nd. Christmas is on Monday, the rest of the week, and then the holiday off on the 1st, and students will return to school on the 2nd right there. So that's the time period for that Christmas. If we put any more work days in there, it was hard to fit the 180 student days that we try to have in our calendar. You have 2 weeks after we come back from Christmas. and this is Martin Luther King Day, the work day. That's the transition between the first and the second semester at the high school. So that's January. February 19th is a work day. Usually it doesn't end up there. It ends up wherever we have a snow day in that February timeframe. Same thing with March and the end of March. Those are work days we put in there. Easter this year is, or this particular in 2024 is on March 31st. So that holiday that is March 29th would be Good Friday right there. The calendar committee looked at when they wanted spring break, and most of the consensus was we did not want to tie, the calendar committee did not want to tie spring break to the Easter holiday. They liked it a little bit better the way we have it this year, the way we'll have it next year, and in this calendar, the way we'll have it in 23-24. And that is that middle of April time, April 15th, that week right there. And we'll come back with about 6 or 7 weeks of school left with the Memorial Day off on May 27th and then a half day on June 7th. It will be out on June 7th. That's the calendar. 180 student days. The 35 other days that have to be in there for employment of various things, from work days to holidays to other things, for a teacher working time of 215 days during this particular school year. This is the calendar that the calendar committee is bringing to you for hopefully your approval or recommendations on how you would like it changed.
Questions for Mr. Sherman?
There is one more out there, and that is the early colleges calendar. Works on a very, very similar set of schedules, except they are not held to the calendar law because of their early innovative school that they are not held to the calendar law. So you'll notice that they start on August 8th and they're finished in about mid-May right there. So they're not held to the calendar law.
Just reminded the board that that is to align with ICC because they're taking their college coursework in conjunction with their high school coursework. So they're allowed a provision by the law to do that.
Questions for Mr. Sherman? So, Mr. Fagan, we can approve these 3 items together, correct? The actionable items are the ones for the 2022-2023 school year for all other schools, and then for 2023-2024 school year for the early college and all other schools.
I make a motion that we approve the school calendars for 2022, 23, 23, 24.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on now to administrative. Our first item under that is a budget amendment. Ms. Debbie Lovelace.
Okay, in your board packets, I have the board, the amendment number 4. The only thing we had this time was $17,349 was additional revenue from the state in revisions number 43 through 48. Some of this was, a small amount was technology, literacy intervention, the EC Special Programs Fund, and behavior money that we received. The other one we had was in federal, which that was ESSER 3 IDEA for our exceptional children, gaggle and cyberbullying, suicide prevention that we received. So that's the only ones received, and all these were additional revenue.
Questions from Ms. Lovelace? This is an actionable item. We'd be looking for a motion and a second for approval.
I'll move the budget amendments be approved as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on under administrative to the second bullet point, we have the proposed 2022-2023 budget. Ms. Debbie Lovelace.
Okay, In your packet also is the budget resolutions. This is a yearly thing we do at this time of the year. Basically, it's the same as it was last year. We start out with this as our resolution, and then we will change it as we get more information from DPI. But this is just the local part because we don't have all the state and federal yet. But the county, this is 5.405 million from the county, which is given to us in 12 months. In other words, we get a portion of this each month, but for the total for the year be 5.4. Then on the next page, the other one we do locally is the capital. And that is the same as prior years. It's $312,000 for our capital expenditures for renovations and improvements on our schools. This will, and this is as we ask for reimbursements from the county.
And Mr. Chair, I'll add that we had this discussion during the board meeting about working with the county government in terms of keeping things flat this year with our request. As we all discussed and know that as we go forward, we're probably going to have to ask for some increases both in operations and in capital. But for this year, this is the same request we've made in past years, and we have discussed that with the county offices. I also want to point out there's additional capital outlay money that is designated for Polk County Schools that they retain in an account. So 312 is basically what we start with from an operations perspective, but as we have special projects and needs, there is an additional fund over there that we can pull from in cases of emergency and things.
Questions on proposed budgets? These are actionable items. We'll be looking for a motion in a second for approval.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Next, on to our next topic is the PCHS HVAC project. Mr. Dave Sherman.
We are moving along with this project. Like I've told you for the last couple of months, we kind of use that map for the building. If you're familiar with the building, you know section A2 and B2 are on the second floor, even though you can get to the ground floor from back there. It's not the least bit confusing, but we have completed so far sections A1, A2, B1, and B2. So the back hallway downstairs, the back hallway upstairs, the connector from the office around, and then both sides of the hallway upstairs where our CTE program, our nursing program, those areas are all finished. We have started last week on the area N, what we call the new wing, the band area of the building. That should take us to about the middle of May, maybe the beginning of May, somewhere along that line. And then we're going to get our next area that's going to cause us some inconvenience, and that is section C and D. We worked with our construction company to get a little bit further ahead for all the summer work, which is in essence everything to the left in that picture of section D right there. And so we've taken a couple of those little classrooms around C and into D. And when we're doing the media center demolition and getting that part done, we're also going to be able to do demolition on a couple of the little classrooms and a couple little offices that are in the C D kind of section right there. So kind of like we did the right-hand side going around, we're going to do a little bit of work on the left-hand side, and that will be from May to the end of the school year into June, so that then we can shut everything off and finish the rest of the building and everything back from sections D working to the left in there on the during our summer work. So summer will then take us to the auditorium, the gym, cafeteria, kitchens, and all of those areas there for the project to finish up. Still on track. We tentatively planned for the ceiling guys to come in and put the new ceiling in the first week of August. And that'll take most of the first to the second week of August in there. And then we'll be back in using the building in the second week of August in time for us to start the next school year. So we made a little bit of adjustment to try to get our sports teams, particularly our volleyball, back into the gym at the very beginning of August. Their season actually starts at the very beginning of August, the times they can do practice and those things. So rather than farming them out to the middle school or some other location, we're trying to get them back in. So we're going to do the demolition and some of the major construction on the gym kind of before we get there. So that'll be out of the way and they can have that done. So kids will start moving back in. They won't have air conditioning in the gym when they start, but they haven't had it in 30 years doing volleyball there. So one more summer probably won't hurt them a great deal. But later on, as the end of August comes along, that will all be attached and be running by the time the school year starts in August. So tell you about the price we paid so far. So really we're at 3.8 million and a remaining budget on there is about $2.3 million. As we had talked with you about, we are in conversations with a company out of Asheville called McKimmon Creed. We're very happy with the work that Brady has been doing for us. We've had no concerns, but one of the things we have wanted along the way is another engineering company to come in and just review the work that's been done for it. And so we're working on getting that price and setting the scope for their review of our work right there. And hopefully by the time next month comes around, I'll have that for you to tell you, just so a second set of eyes that are going to look over this. We have no concerns, no issues with it, but somebody that's a little more trained than me looking at this would probably be a good idea. So we want to make sure that we're getting everything we're paying for and it's working the way it's supposed to work.
Questions for Dave? All right, moving along, we'll now move back to Mr. Shipping for a Forbes Trial Elementary School preschool edition update.
Been a busy month since I saw you last. So in there, you saw the note I put out there for you, and that is last month we had the discussion that we needed to put an RFQ out there for architects. So we worked with Campbell Shatley out of Asheville and got their basic RFQ request for qualifications document. We modified it a little bit to meet our document and then we released it. We released it to architects that we were familiar with, a list of about 20 of them in Western North Carolina or in North Carolina and the surrounding area that have done work for us. We posted on the state's projects that are coming out, DIP, I can't remember exactly what it is. Their project site where contractors will go to and see when projects are scheduled that are out there. So we requested to have that posted out there. We put the request out there for about 3 weeks. We had the bids come in last Wednesday. We had four architecture firms that put in an RFQ for this particular project. One of them hadn't done a lot of school work. They'd done lots of other construction work. They had done some school work. I think they qualified. It would not have been they were unqualified, but they hadn't done a lot of school work. Another one had done a great deal of school work, mostly all in the Charlotte area. Their list of Charlotte-Mecklenburg school they did was just a long list of school after school after school after school after school they did in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. The third one was BOE Architecture. BOE you may be familiar with, helped us with many, many projects around here from the high school, the middle school, the additions, Sunnyview addition. We've used them for lots of projects. If you looked at their documentation, they've done projects, I think it was 2,500, I think it was, school projects so far, and in 80 of the 100 counties in North Carolina. So we were familiar with them. And then one other company, Pinnacle Architecture, that has done projects throughout many parts of North Carolina, particularly in the center part of the state, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg, little east, little west of there, and looking to expand into our area here. The committee reviewed all four of those proposals, and the information they were presented with here made the unanimous decision to choose Pinnacle Architecture. I'll say BOE was a close second, but some on the committee were unhappy with or had a hard time voting for BOE when they've done projects for us in the past and did not always provide the oversight that we would have asked for in those projects. And so I wanted to give it a new company that is very qualified, done lots of schools, done lots of other work in North Carolina, an opportunity for that project here. And so we'll ask you to make the official selection of Pinnacle Architecture as the architect to move forward with this project.
As we pointed out during the budget workshop as well, we also felt like this was a group that was a little bit smaller. Maybe we could have a little bit more help with them to keep the controlled budget to a certain degree, hopefully with the cost of things going the way they're going these days. So that was another big determining factor in using Pinnacle. Any questions for Dave?
You might comment on how they're paid.
So all of the architects get paid as part of this project as a percentage of the overall project. We're expecting the price to come in somewhere, I think it needs between 5.5% and 6.5%. And every architect I've talked to as part of this saying just that their price will come in somewhere between 5.5% and 6.5%. That's part of the next step on this process, is working out the design and the cost and their fee for doing that work. That'll be part of the contract that we move forward with next.
This is an actionable item. We would be looking for a motion and a second for approval.
I move that we accept or take Pinnacle Architect.
I second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. On to our next item. That's going to be surplus property. Right back to you, Mr. Sherwood.
Oh, we are making up for a time period when we did lots of other things in school other than facilities and other things. So schools have gone around their facility, found materials that are no longer of use to them, things that we can no longer use in any other school. So we have a list, I think it's 10 blocks of surplus material. One of them being lighting and sound equipment. We've had a great opportunity to do some upgrades at the high school and Trine Elementary. So that equipment has come out and it's ready. The high school stuff's only 30 years old and the Trine Elementary stuff is probably older than that. So if you're interested in any lighting or sound equipment, it's only 30 years old. We've been very fortunate to do some computer and other replacements. And so we have monitors and computers that are being replaced. Chromebooks, we've done with the federal government's ECF funding. We've been able to do a replacement of some of our Chromebooks. We have about 200 of those that are out of service any longer, out of the management part right there. We have about 15 so far, Promethean boards and projectors that we used our ESSER money to replace with displays. That project's starting tomorrow. And so we have some of those to be replaced. We have a cart that is no longer functioning for us, some cables and other miscellaneous electronic equipment, a 1996 John Deere riding lawnmower, if anybody's interested, a 2001 leaf vacuum, and a 2003 floor scrubber. So some high quality equipment we have out there that has been sitting in various places that needs to go. We'll offer these for bids. We've asked the bids to come in on May 6th. And then they couldn't be removed shortly after that. So these will all be sealed bids and come from there.
Questions for Mr. Sheridan on the surplus? This is an actionable item still. We will need a motion and a second for approval.
I'll make a motion for the surplus property to be.
Thank you. I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. On to our next item for food service bids. Mr. Green, do we have some bids in hand or do we not?
Well, I've got good and bad news, Mr. Ashworth. We did get some bids back in. We have not gotten the full-blown food bid back in. Ms. Peeler sends her regrets. She's actually out doing some things in the name of food service, but we did receive our milk bid, our drink bid. The chemical bid comes from Correction Enterprises. That's one we've used before as well. And then a fresh fruit, fresh vegetable bid. And so these are the four bids that the food service staff and administration would like to recommend to you that we accept. Quite frankly, 3 out of 4 of these, we were lucky to get bids. And so we feel pretty fortunate to have that. Most vendors do not want to deal with a school system our size. You don't have the economy of scale, making deliveries more expensive. We are concerned about the overall food bid, and we are working with DPI on that front. But these are the 4 we have available now, and we'd like to go ahead and
Questions for Mr. Green? Again, this is an actionable item. We'll be looking for a motion and a second for approval.
I move the food service bid.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Green, right back to you for additional staff bonuses.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I would recommend we table this as we talked in our budget workshop. DPI has yet to give us the final regs on that and the final allotment, so we don't have an amount yet. I'd rather come back to the board with a specific amount so that you guys know what each individual will be getting out of that 071 bonus money. So if you don't mind, we'll table that until next time.
That's good. And then the last item under administrative is your superintendent's update, Mr. Green.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. As I did last time, I won't go into a great deal of detail. As we have spoken before, the board is obligated to vote on our current COVID measures, and administration would recommend that we continue as we are at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Green? We do have to vote, so we're looking for a motion of second for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on now, Mr. Green, any old business?
No old business, sir.
Okay, how about new business?
Yes, sir. For new business, as we talked in our budget workshop, I would like to request that the board approve a one-time performance bonus for assistant principals. As we know, the principals received a state bonus for performance. Our assistant principals did not. They also were not eligible for the teacher bonuses that came out over the years through DPI. So we would request that you allow us to take $1,000 for each of the 3 assistant principals and provide that as a performance bonus that will come from local funding.
Questions for Mr. Green? We'll be looking for a motion and a second for approval.
So moved. A second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Any other new business, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Also, as we discussed in our budget workshop, would like to request or propose to the board that we be allowed to add an accountability coordinator position. We talked about transitions and departments in terms of who's leaving in the coming months and years, and feel like that we need to reorganize how we do things here at the district office level. I gave you the reasons during that time frame. Obviously willing to discuss anything at this point, but that would be a coordinator position, not a director's position, and it would we don't have any individual for that position right now. It's just to open the position up so that we can advertise for prospective candidates. And that would be taking effect next year. That position would start in July of 2022.
Questions for Mr. Green? Okay. Begin an actionable item. We'll need a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
A second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Sir, one last new business item would be our PCHS track that is in horrible shape. And we did receive a certain amount of funding. Again, we talked in our budget workshop about the funds that are made available by the state to renovate athletic facilities and additional monies. I think Mr. Sherping has provided us with a purchase order. Did I hand that out to you guys already? I think I did. And so we would be
Bids on that.
the bids are on the back. So we would be recommending that the board go with Geosurfaces Southeast. Those 4 bids were presented. I believe the facilities committee did have a conversation about which company to go with. And after tweaking all the things that were required in the project, updates on costs, that purchase order and agreement would come to $374,585. And if you wait 2 months, it'll probably be $400,000. I realize that is a tremendous amount of money for a track, but that's where we are.
Mr. Green, would you comment a little bit on source of some of the funds for where we might do this?
Absolutely. So the state is offering 2 basically one-time allotments to school districts right now. We presume that's coming out of some type of capital fund that they have there, probably akin to the lottery funds. 104,000 roughly are required to be spent on athletic facilities and can be obtained just by, I think we've got the money already. It's already been placed into our budget. And then there's an additional 300,000 that is going to be given to us through our lottery fund mechanism that can be used for renovations and repairs. And this falls right in line with that. So we'll have $400,000, 374 of which we'd like to spend on this track so that our athletes can continue to run successfully. I will tell you, we have been informed by our conference and by state meets that we'll no longer be allowed to participate or excuse me, host them at Polk County High School if our track is not prepared.
I was gonna have you comment on that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
I will also comment that of all the teams that we field in Polk County, the track team is the one who has garnered the most state championships and serves the largest amount of students in terms of an activity.
Any other questions for Mr. Green? We'll be looking for a motion in the second for approval.
Motion for the track.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0.
I lied, there's two more that are actually on the list, so I'll get through those, Mr. Chair. I don't even think that we necessarily need to vote. We had a discussion about personal leave in the board workshop. And the administrative recommendation, given the changes at the state level, would simply be to leave the deduction if there needs to be one at $50. So unless the board would like to change that amount, I think we can just leave that item alone. So I don't know what the board's pleasure is, but at this time, I'd just like to leave that amount alone with the understanding that we'll proceed as we discussed.
What would be pleasure of the board? Stay as is?
So no action there, okay? And then I wanted to make sure you also knew, you got a copy of the Boy Scouts career survey. I want to make sure you knew what that survey looked like. It truly is an exploration of careers. You can take a look down what the different career areas are, different topics would be, and want to make sure you had that information. The Boy Scouts have been approached and have approached multiple community organizations about their Explorers program. Explorers is a program where younger students have the opportunity to go and learn about careers and professions, and the Boy Scouts help coordinate those processes. So we've been contacted by several local fire departments who want to work with the Boy Scouts on this, and the Polk County Sheriff's Office. And we certainly feel like this is a good program in terms of getting kids connected to careers and thinking about their futures. We feel like this is a very benign survey. It's actually obviously very optional, and it only talks about what those career goals are going forward. So I wanted to make you aware that we will we'll be given this unless the board objects in some shape, form, or fashion to it. We'll be given this as an optional thing for students to do. And I think that'll be great information for the Boy Scouts and for our local organizations to have those Explorer programs filled. So unless y'all have an issue, we'll proceed.
Any questions for the screen name? All right. Anything else, sir?
No, sir, I believe not. Dave, did I forget anything?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
All right, under information, you see you have the March Policy Council meeting minutes, March pre-K monthly report, pre-K financial report, monthly financial report, credit card report, Head Start annual report. We have a required teacher work day on April 15th, on the 18th, and then spring break is from the 19th through the 22nd. Also have board training, optional board training.
Thank you.
Western Regional Meeting, April 26th, 1:30 to 5:15 here at the Convention Center. Summer Leadership Conference, June 20th to the 24th at Carolina Beach. Board training, July 18th and 19th in Raleigh, and November the 14th and 16th, Sheraton, Greensboro, Core Convention Center. At this point in time, we have reached time for public input. This time, ladies and gentlemen, we have one person on the agenda to speak, so we do not need to amend our policy tonight to allow for additional speakers. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes per person, and please do not address any individual students or teachers in anything you say. But the only person we have is Ms. Amber Hall.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate everything that the board has done. I know we've been pretty hard on everybody as a group, as a whole. But I just want to say I appreciate everything that y'all are doing to keep the morals and the values of Polk County alive and available to our students. With that being said, I also want to bring to the attention of the board, once again, I'm bringing it back to the forefront, some of these books are pornographic. They are listing, I know we've got an implemented a board for review to get some of these books out. But state policies say that the school board can remove these without having to be reviewed by committee. So I would just encourage you, if you want a copy of the list of books that we found so far, I'll be happy to send it to you guys so y'all can go read them for yourselves, because it's not just me. I mean, there's a group of us parents here in Polk County that if you can't read them on the radio, why would you want our kids read them? I mean, just honestly think about it. If you get fined $250,000 on the radio for reading some of this stuff, why would it be in the hands of our children? I mean, so just, I asked to bring some more common sense back to this, guys. I feel like everything got a little blown out of proportion with COVID. We got heated, everybody else got heated. You know, let's bring back some common sense. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
What, really?
Well, at this time, folks, I'll be looking for a motion to move into closed session for purposes of discussing personnel. And do we have any attorney-client privilege?
So we can do a property matter as well, sir.
Okay, so for that purposes of personnel and attorney-client privilege.
Awesome.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, folks, for being here.
Well, don't pay attention, you do, just count.
I'll have to compliment
Yeah, I mean, it was.
I had it in mind when I sat here and forgot about it.
She comes out during class and it's, we sit there and I.
That's right.
I don't know a lot of big friends like that. And we just sit there and we're like, you know, we do, yeah. And it's like, I get it, but I was just like, yeah, sure, whatever, got it.
So the teacher just started challenging you.
Yes, that's exactly it.
The only time that I.
We're fine. But hopefully we'll get better.
I wonder Sure. I watch next to zero TV. I don't watch.
I'm very kidding.
I think myself.
They were fairly young. They did one just about every.
Yeah.
And they're so good. I mean, it's really.
All right.
It's really.
You're back in here.
Yeah.
Tight corner.
You ready?
Let me be the one to do it. I heard that.
John.
Listen, that father is missing.
I'm just asking.
Nice chairs.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
The turn for kids, I mean, are they certain days? Do they just take out whenever they want to? How did that work?
Yeah, it used to be. It was just.
I say,
But you still more fast. You weren't supposed to.
It's assumed.
I mean, he got an absence, unexcused absence. What's so wrong with that? I mean, I even put it on social media. I let my kids.
I
get
saw that, I
stuff.
thought, what?
If youth days, were not on the weekends for the kids in South Carolina, I'd take my kids. But I wouldn't put it on Facebook.
Mother of the year.
Just kidding, Daniel.
I think youth days is to 18. And they, some of these young boys are
It is in South
really,
Carolina.
is it, some of these young boys are really good.
Oh, yeah.
You're just jealous, Rick.
No, no, it's just- I wish it would be up to maybe 12, not 18. The youth day should be up to about age 12.
You say Macomb?
Yeah.
Not 18.
They just won't be the.
You can come on in.
Thank you.